Hello and welcome to Bent TV. My name is Erin Kyan, pronouns he, him, and we are broadcasting from the land of the Kulin Nation. Today I am joined by Jacci Pillar, they, them, and we're going to talk a little bit about their experiences. So hi Jacci.
Mana mana.
Do, 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 do.
Mana mana.
Do, 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 do.
Now most people associate that with
Muppets.
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 But did you actually know, interesting fact, it was actually a song from a 1968 soft porn movie named Heaven and Hell.
Amazing. That is the best piece of knowledge.
I know. So now that I have spoiled all of your childhood memories of fuzzy creatures bobbing up and down with a porn reference, that's a bit about what I wanted to talk to you about today, is about how as young people like myself, which I am an autistic non-binary femme, we relate to the world very literally. And we spend a lot of our time trying to work the world out, which is thus why.
Well, that's why.
The black and white.
Ah, the black and white.
I mean, it is true. Some people say that autistic people are very black and white, very rigid in their thinking. You've met one autistic person. You have met one autistic person. Not all of us. We're all different.
There's always that attitude, isn't there, that once you know a single person who fits a demographic, that clearly you know everything about that demographic. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so, but I am very literal, and I made it my life's mission to understand other human beings, and I studied anthropology and the anthropology of language and the power of language. So I became committed to trying to figure out why people used metaphor and analogy and very, very literal. And today I'd like to talk about how life is not a porn set.
Yeah, funny that. Yeah, you're right. Like, tell me a little bit more about like where that connection between that literal side of way of looking at things and porn sets comes into it.
Okay, so part of my work throughout the years has been working with young people on how they relate as a sexual being. And, you know, we've recently seen an upturn in the use of pornography with younger people. And I need to point out now that pornography is an industry and people have a right to work in it as a sex worker. They also have a right to be safe. And there's a lot of emerging trends in porn that have been a bit disturbing. But there's an interesting metaphor, because for me, I had to get all my cues about what was sexy from film and TV around me. And I wasn't exposed to porn, but it's like, you know, porn is not real life and real life is not porn.
No, and thank goodness.
Yes, yes, completely. I don't fancy bleaching certain parts of my body for anyone. But yeah, and for example, the notion of what was sexy. For me, I had all of my friends around 15. You know, I was interested in horses and dogs. I'm very straight and very direct. And I had all my friends when I was about 15, we needed to be sexy. That was the thing in the 80s and the, you know.
It's a thing when you're young and, you know, when you're getting all these messages from society about what's important in life, and society unfortunately thinks that sex appeal and sexiness is a really vital part of us.
Yeah.
Which it can be for some people. It is worth noting that, like, if you do value that, that's fine. It's just not good for it to be forced onto people.
That's right. And there were two conflicting messages for me. There was a message of my family, which was very much straight.
Yeah.
And my own fascination with, I don't remember a band called A Flock of Seagulls?
Oh, yes, yeah.
They had a video clip for a song called I Ran. I ran, so, yeah, sorry, detour. And there was this amazing androgynous female in the video. You know, and I was like, oh, this is really exciting. And I realised I was really attracted, but I also realised that in the 80s, my life would have got a lot worse had I pursued that.
You sort of had that knowledge that, like, if I'm real about this, that's going to cause problems for me.
Yeah, and I was already experiencing a lot of negativity in my life. So I thought, how do I find out what sex is? So I went to what was logical for me, and that was, I went and asked my grandfather.
Of course, as you do.
And he said, Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
Let me tell you, there's 10 years of my life I will never get back. You know, and so I watched every Marilyn Monroe film I could, and I just overdosed on heteronormativity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Which
was
is kind of
hard.
extra rough because Marilyn Monroe was known to have like relationships with women.
Women, yes, she was.
So it's kind of odd that she's this icon of heteronormativity
Yeah.
when she, as a person, just wasn't at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting. So there's pictures of me in my early life with the blonde bob and the whole thing going on. I learned how to walk, how to talk like her. I will not do it on camera.
How did that affect, like, as you were coming out and your first crushes and how you related to them?
I didn't pursue them. I mean, and there were a couple in secret
Yeah.
in my late teens, but in my early teens, I was completely closeted and very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I mean, my first official crush, which was the crush that I thought I had to have,
Ah, yes.
was Arnold the Butcher.
Oh, Butcher.
Yeah, so he worked at Coles with me, and I thought he liked me. But I was also looking for film and television references towards, well, if I've got to be attracted to a man, what did we have in the 1980s? Oh, yeah, Rambo.
Oh, God. Yes.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. Steven Seagal had a ponytail, and that was like
Yeah.
Steven Seagal and Masters of the Universe. So
So it was that very hyper masculine.
so hyper masculine, and Arnold was everything. Hello, Arnold, if you're out there. Arnold was everything that represented. He was very well built, and he had this miraculous square jaw, and the most magnificent mullet you've ever seen. So it was like.
So what happened? With the Butcher.
I thought he liked me. So the other thing that I experience is that I'm not very good with, I feel emotion. So I have high affective empathy. We do have empathy. High affect, so we feel we're a bit like a sponge, but we don't have cognitive empathy as much as others. We have it, but so, you can say something and I'll work on words and actions, not necessarily tone of voice. So, there's a number of things. I'm relatively face blind, so I have an analytical understanding of facial expressions. And he came out of the freezer at work, and I was sort of like, so he fits this He-Man and the mullets of the universe
Yes.
model, and he came out of the freezer, and he must have figured out I was sort of a bit. And he came out of the freezer with a pig's tail out of his zipper in his pants, and he was like,
oh no.
and it was being funny, and that was sort of how you were funny
Back in the 80s.
The 80s. I mean, we had some pretty bad film references for that, and I thought that he liked me. He didn't, and I now know as an adult that perhaps he would have put maybe a much bigger sausage out of his.
Would have put a bit more effort in.
Serious, maybe with a bit
Yeah.
more effort. And I decided that I needed to get to show him how I felt. So I went to a female friend and said, "How do I dress sexy?" And she put me in 6-inch stiletto heels.
Of course.
White.
Yeah.
They were white with stainless steel heels, little cut-off shorts, and a very sheer white T-shirt with a black bra underneath, tied in a knot. Very
Yeah, unfortunately, that is
Donna
kind
style.
of what we're told sexiness is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it was really rough, like trying to deal with all that. But I'm very glad you came out the other side.
I did, because I went to the hospital to see him.
Yeah.
The only time I could get alone time with him was after he'd had a motorbike accident. And I confidently strut in, and he was sitting in his bed with his very pregnant girlfriend beside him. So I don't have great spatial awareness, so I then turned and bolted, slid on my backside for 5 metres.
Oh, excellent.
So,
well done.
Yeah. So I then decided that, clearly I'm made for comedy.
Yeah.
Because apparently I got up
hey.
and brushed myself off and made a joke of it. So
At least something good came out of it, I guess.
yeah.
And if people are interested in your comedy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. We can do a link,
Just
I think,
under
at the bottom.
Jacci Pillar?
Jacci Pillar, Jacci, which is an alternative spelling.
Yep.
Pillar like pillar of the community.
Pillar of comedy.
I mainly do production, and I do a couple of independent productions a year, primarily because I have sensory issues,
Yep.
and doing stand-up in a
It can be
public
hard,
club
yeah.
is really hard for me. And I am planning on doing much more comedy in the future.
Well, that's good. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you all are as well. Jacci, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been really good to hear about your experiences. And hopefully we can do it again sometime.
That would be great. And you know, one of the, if I could leave a final message, and
Yeah,
that
of
is
course.
that, you know, we've now got research coming out of the Netherlands that
Yep.
shows that autistic people are largely trans and non-binary. In fact,
Yeah.
one research cohort, only 6% were not.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we don't get gender.
Don't get that stuff.
And we don't feel
Yeah.
we need to conform. So now we have this new age where young people don't have to conform and there are not as many rules.
Yeah.
And I think that's something beautiful and to
It
be
is,
celebrated.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on
Yeah.
TV.
And yeah, so especially if you are autistic, like, if you don't get it, that's fine. Like,
It's completely okay.
you're perfect the way you are. You
Yes.
really are. Thank you so much for watching, and Jackie, thank you for talking
Thank you.
with me. You've been watching Bent TV.